Atlantic City. Back in the day, it was the place to be. Think about it. Grand hotels towering over the world's most famous boardwalk, families crowding the beaches and streets buzzing with life. You'd smell saltwater taffy in the air, hear music spilling out from theaters, and see Americana architecture that looked straight out of a postcard. But now, it's like the soul of the city packed up and left. Those grand hotels, gone, replaced by bland, lifeless casinos. The lively streets? They're quiet now, with crumbling buildings that feel more like a ghost town than a getaway. So, what went wrong? How did this shining star of American tourism lose its glow? Let's unpack the story of Atlantic City, a roller coaster ride of fame, failure, and everything in between. Back in the day, Atlantic City wasn't just a place to visit, it was the place to be. Imagine this, a seaside town with golden beaches, grand hotels stretching along the shore, and the sound of laughter and music spilling out from its iconic boardwalk. Located just a short train ride from cities like Philadelphia and New York, it became the ultimate weekend escape for city folks looking to breathe in some fresh ocean air. Atlantic City really hit its stride in the mid-1800s, thanks to a genius idea, building a direct rail line straight to the Jersey Shore. Suddenly, everyone could hop on a train and be at the beach in no time. And let me tell you, they came in droves. By the 1870s, over 500,000 people were making their way here every year. The town quickly grew into a hotspot for anyone wanting a little bit of luxury, fun, and sun. Then there was the boardwalk. Oh, the boardwalk. It wasn't just a clever way to keep sand out of hotel lobbies, it became the heart of Atlantic City. Families strolled along the boardwalk, stopping at shops, grabbing snacks, and enjoying the sea breeze. It had everything: hotels, restaurants, shops, even live entertainment. It didn't take long before Atlantic City was hosting massive events like the Miss America pageant, which brought in crowds from all over the country. What made Atlantic City so special back then? It had the perfect mix: easy access, luxurious vibes, and just the right amount of excitement. Whether you were staying in a fancy beachfront hotel, walking along the buzzing boardwalk, or tasting saltwater taffy for the first time, Atlantic City made sure you left with a smile, and probably plans to come back. By the 1920s, Atlantic City wasn't just a beach town. It was the nation's playground. Think of this: massive, luxurious hotels towering over the boardwalk, small businesses bustling with tourists, and events like the Miss America pageant putting the city on the map. Imagine the electric buzz of excitement as contestants, dressed in shimmering gowns, paraded down the boardwalk under a canopy of flashing lights. Crowds lined up shoulder to shoulder, cheering and snapping photos while the air was thick with the scent of popcorn and ocean breeze. For many, it wasn't just a beauty pageant. It was the highlight of the year, a celebration of glamour, ambition, and the magic of Atlantic City. If you wanted glamour, fun, and a little escape, Atlantic City was the place to be. But here's where things get really interesting: Prohibition. While the rest of the country was dry, Atlantic City said, "Not here." Speakeasies, underground bars, and hidden clubrooms popped up everywhere. The city became a haven for those who wanted to party without looking over their shoulder, earning it a reputation as a place where rules were made to be broken. Picture this: dimly lit basements packed with laughter, the clink of glasses, and the jazzy rhythm of a live band echoing through hidden doorways. Partygoers dressed to the nines in flapper dresses and sharp suits sipped on bootleg cocktails while whispers of the next big secret speakeasy spread like wildfire. It wasn't just about breaking the rules, it was about living life on the edge. And it wasn't just the nightlife that made Atlantic City shine. The streets were a mix of beauty and charm, with rows of classic townhouses and public buildings that could rival those in any major city. Let's not forget the saltwater taffy. Yep, it was invented right here. Oh, and Monopoly fans? Every property on that iconic board game was inspired by the streets of Atlantic City. This was a city that had it all: luxury, excitement, and a personality that made it one of a kind. But as history shows, even the brightest stars can't stay at their peak forever. So how does a city go from being the hotspot to a place struggling to keep the lights on? For Atlantic City, the decline wasn't just one thing. It was a mix of bad luck, bad choices, and some fierce competition. First, let's talk about the competition. By the mid-20th century, amusement parks like Disneyland and Disney World were popping up, and they were a game changer. Families that once flocked to Atlantic City for the boardwalk and beaches now wanted something bigger, flashier, and more magical. On top of that, cheap airfare made it easier for people to vacation further away. Instead of spending a weekend in Atlantic City, they were heading to Florida, California, or even Europe. But the real cracks in Atlantic City's foundation came from within. The city's dependence on cars, for example, led to the destruction of tight-knit neighborhoods to make way for endless parking lots. What was once a charming seaside town began to lose its character. Parking lots don't exactly scream fun getaway. Add to that the wave of suburbanization, and suddenly many of the locals were packing up and leaving for bigger homes in the suburbs. That meant less money flowing directly into the city and more economic decline. And then came the casinos. Sure, they were supposed to save the city. For a while, they did. But as neighboring states like Pennsylvania and New York legalized gambling, Atlantic City lost its edge. Why drive hours to Atlantic City when you could hit the slots much closer to home? Worse, the casinos didn't care much about the city itself. Millions of dollars flowed through their doors, but just step one block off the boardwalk and you'd find rundown streets filled with pawn shops, adult stores, and loiterers. The contrast was jarring and depressing. To make matters worse, the city's leadership didn't do Atlantic City any favors. Mismanagement, corruption, and a lack of forward thinking kept the city stuck in the past. Investments that could have revitalized infrastructure and tourism were squandered. Instead, the city was left with crumbling buildings, outdated attractions, and an economy that couldn't keep up. And let's not forget the changing tastes of travelers. People were moving toward eco-friendly, culturally diverse destinations, or cities that offered a modern, upscale experience. Atlantic City, with its aging casinos and neglected beachfront, felt like a relic of the past. The result? A once thriving city slowly turned into a shell of its former self. The boardwalk remained, but the magic was gone. Crime rates soared, unemployment rose, and the streets that once bustled with life now stood as a reminder of what Atlantic City used to be. It's a heartbreaking tale of missed opportunities and what-ifs. When Atlantic City found itself on the brink, the city tried to roll the dice. Literally. In the late 1970s, the idea was simple. If Las Vegas could thrive on gambling, why couldn't Atlantic City? The plan was to reinvent itself as Vegas of the East, drawing in crowds with flashy casinos and promising a new era of prosperity. At first, it seemed like a winning hand. The casinos brought jobs, money, and a surge of tourists eager to try their luck. Towering new developments replaced many of the city's aging hotels, and for a brief moment, Atlantic City looked like it might make a comeback. But here's the problem. The transformation came at a cost. Those grand, historic hotels that gave the city its charm, bulldozed. Picture this. The Marlborough Blenheim Hotel, once the crown jewel of Atlantic City's skyline, standing tall with its stunning Moorish architecture, was reduced to rubble in 1979. Its demolition wasn't just loud, it was symbolic. As the wrecking ball swung, tearing through its grand domes and elegant walls, it felt like more than just a building was being destroyed. It was the city's soul. Crowds gathered, some snapping pictures, others shaking their heads in disbelief. In its place, a bland, boxy casino that didn't hold a fraction of the charm or history it replaced. It was a moment that defined Atlantic City's gamble on the future, and one it never truly recovered from. In their place, modern casinos popped up, big, boxy, and utterly soulless. They didn't blend with the city's unique character, they erased it. Those cold, impersonal-looking modern buildings next to old Victorian houses made the landscape feel dystopian, like two worlds awkwardly colliding. Atlantic City started to feel less like a vibrant beach town and more like a second-rate Vegas, with water. And while the casinos brought in some short-term gains, they didn't deliver the long-term revival the city needed. Unlike Las Vegas, which built an identity around its over-the-top glitz and glamour, Atlantic City never quite figured out who it wanted to be. The result? A city caught between its nostalgic past and a future that felt forced and artificial. The worst part? The casinos focused inward. caring little about the city beyond their walls. Sure, money was flowing in, but it wasn't reaching the streets, the neighborhoods, or the people who needed it most. Instead, Atlantic City lost what made it special, a unique seaside charm that couldn't be found anywhere else. In the end, the gamble didn't pay off. Instead of saving Atlantic City, the casino boom left it struggling to compete with bigger, shinier gambling destinations and a reputation as a shadow of its former self. So, what went wrong? At its core, Atlantic City's downfall came from forgetting what made it special in the first place. The city bulldozed its irreplaceable charm, those historic hotels, quaint neighborhoods, and that unmistakable seaside vibe, all for a quick fix: casinos. But by chasing trends instead of embracing its roots, Atlantic City ended up losing its identity. And here's the kicker: the casinos didn't even work out in the long run. Look at cities like Venice, London, or Paris. Sure, they've had to adapt over the centuries, but they've done it without erasing their character. Even places like San Francisco, which transitioned from shipping to tech, managed to hold on to their cultural essence. These cities remind us that evolution doesn't mean destruction. It means building on what's already there, enhancing it, not replacing it. Atlantic City's story serves as a cautionary tale for cities everywhere. Don't throw away what makes you distinctive. When a place loses its soul, its history, its culture, its distinctiveness, it becomes just another dot on the map, easy to overlook. But it's not all doom and gloom. The lessons are clear. Cities that thrive are the ones that stay true to themselves while finding ways to move forward. Distinction isn't just an asset, it's survival. Atlantic City's story might be one of loss, but it's also a reminder to cherish and protect the very things that make a place unforgettable.